Live.
Hi everybody, my name is Jennifer Strasbaugh. I sit on the board here at Todd's Inheritance. We are a nonprofit historic house associated with North Point State Park. We also rely exclusively on donations and grants that we manage to acquire. So keep us in mind. I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Luci Jockel is a full-time lecturer in the Jewelry and Metalsmithing department at Towson University. Her work focuses on contemporary interpretations of historic mourning jewelry. We have one of our maybe only few art exhibits set up in the parlor, which I hope that you'll be able to stay and look at afterwards. Luci's works are juxtaposed with antique pieces that were provided largely by her parents, Dan and Tina, who are antique dealers. So you will see a combination of contemporary jewelry that Luci has made, as well as antique pieces that are very interesting to see. I do want to make one note that Luci, we're very excited to have her here, recently sold a work of art to the Renwick, which is part of the Smithsonian. So, yes, I know. Really honored to have her work here, and I hope that you will stay after the lecture because we're having a small reception to honor the reception, to honor the art exhibition afterwards. Now I'll turn it over to Luci.
Thank you. Do you want me to use the microphone?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, can everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you to Todd for having me. This is really interesting and cool to be in a space like this in the same period that my work is referencing. So thank you, and thank you all for showing up on this beautiful Saturday. The weather is beautiful today, so I appreciate you being here. So today I want to talk about both historic and contemporary mourning jewelry and how the historic mourning jewelry really influenced my own work, and show you some examples of different artists doing similar things and talking about grieving and mourning. But first, I want to talk about my parents and a little bit about my background and how I came to be interested in these things. So my parents are both antique dealers, and so they've been antique dealers since they were 16. So I've grown up my whole life just seeing different weird objects in and out of the house and going to antique shows. And hearing stories about objects. So that's really influenced me in thinking about storytelling through objects, ascribing value, and also collecting. And just to show you these are some of the things you'll find in their booths, so now if it's okay to use these photos. So a lot of the times in their booth they'll have interesting objects that they don't know the backstory for. So you can see his sticker that says, "No idea." And some strange oddities they'll have sometimes, like these dentures. And my mom's vintage textile and clothing dealer, so she has a lot of lace and clothing, and so I've always been surrounded by these things and deeply influenced by them. And my mother's also a textile artist, so that influenced the direction of my work. You'll see in the other room, there's a lot of pieces in there that are kind of like textile adjacent pieces. And so this is a piece she made of similar to the Victorian pockets that they would have. But because my work is about honeybees, we were talking about the pockets that they have and they put pollen in. So she embroidered this piece, and then I created the little teardrops that each have a honeybee in them. And that was for my first solo exhibition in 2023. So being influenced by that collecting, the idea of collecting, I always wanted to collect something weird, and so I don't know when it really began, but I started to collect bones. And on the right, you can see how my dad stored these skulls when I was moving from college to the next place. So there's a horse skull and some other type of skull. I can't tell right now. Thinking about in a similar way, these specimen carried a story that was also mysterious and was lost. So my mom always tells a story of when I was younger and we were on a road trip, probably back from the antique show, at the end of it I said, Mom, I just counted like 25 roadkill. And she thinks that's so funny that I was counting the roadkill. But to me it was just like, I thought it was, I don't know, it was something I noticed and kind of like had empathy for these animals, and like wanted to memorialize them.
You still have them?
Well, we didn't collect those that roadkill. And so I wanted to tell a little bit about why honeybees, because you'll see bee wings in my work in the show. So when I was a little bit younger, I watched a documentary called The Vanishing of the Bees. Has anybody seen that? And it was talking about the colony collapse disorder, which is caused, honeybees were in great decline due to that phenomenon, and they said it was caused by a range of factors such as mites, habitat destruction, monoculture, pesticides, and climate change. So I had this deep empathy for the bees suffering, and I wanted to learn more about them, and the more I learned, the more interesting it became. And just to talk a little bit more about kind of where we're at with that honeybee population. So although the number of the commercial honeybee colonies in the country have remained stable over the last 20 years, the loss rates still remain really high. So the last year there was a 60% loss rate, but there's still, breeding, I don't know if there's a different word for that, more honeybees to kind of stabilize that, but they're losing them pretty quickly. And the latest article I read, they said they don't know why they're dying, but I mean, I think it's probably due to like all of these different factors, forcing them to pollinate one crop, versus if you think of only eating, as a person, only eating one type of food the rest of your life, you're not going to be very healthy. So versus getting like a variety of food. They are an invasive species, so they do take away food sources from native bees, so it's a very nuanced topic. But they also are what keeps our agriculture running, so they're still pretty important to us. So when I was in grad school, Rhode Island School of Design, I kind of wanted to combine all these things together and think about making new art from different remains, and I had the idea to use honeybee wings for some reason. I can't recall exactly how that came to be, but during grad school there's a lot of ideas happening. So I reached out to all of these. I just realized I haven't been timing myself, so I hope we're going to be good. I reached out to all these beekeepers, and I asked just if they would be able to give me dead bees, which I know is a really weird request. So only a couple people responded, and one of them was Paul Waywell, and he was so generous. He said he had lost his hives due to a harsh winter in Rhode Island, which is common in that region. So he has 10 hives, he lost all of them. So he said, I'll give you the bees, and I can also teach you how to beekeep if you help me to like restore and get ready for the next season, so we can bring in more bees. And he also gave me honey, and he was really generous. And to this day, we're still really close friends, and he'll message me, and I'll tell him about all the things that are happening with the work that I'm still utilizing his bees wings in. So, just real quick, on the right are his hives, and then on the left is in his garage. He has all the frames out, and new frames, and ones he can reuse, so he has like this whole system. Okay, so now on to kind of the mourning jewelry and mourning artwork. On the left is a mourning wreath, and so when I was at RISD, I was researching different rituals for memorializing, and I came across the mourning wreaths. So they would use hair from their loved ones. The wreaths specifically, most of the time they would use a full family, so they would be different colors of hair depending on whoever was in the family. So from young to old, they would create this wreath. And so it wasn't always a mourning wreath, but it would represent the family and eventually would become a mourning wreath. So a little bit more about hair work and hair mourning jewelry. It was really popular during the Queen Victoria's reign in the late 1800s. And when Queen Victoria's husband Albert died, it set her into a state of perpetual mourning, which influenced the culture to express their own grief through adornment and other rituals. Wearing hair jewelry was seen as a form of carrying one's sentiments for the deceased. So these pieces would outlast the deceased. They were a living extension of the body, and their loved ones were preserved in a way, and kind of they were able to remain connected to them in their afterlife. Yes.
Would they hang that someplace special for everybody to see it? Would they wear it on a...
That's a good question. I think I would assume they would hang it like in their parlor, and then pass it down to the generations. My mom might know that answer. Do you know? No, not sure.
Sounds logical.
Yeah. And so on the right is one of my pieces. From the inspiration of this and the format of it, I created a series of bee mourning pieces. And so this is the series plus the last one I showed you. And I utilized different plants that bees pollinate. So these are allium seed pods. There's flax on the top two, cotton, and rose hips. So lovers' eyes were also a form of mourning jewelry in a way, or they're called eye portraits as well. So this one on the left. And these existed before there was photography, so they would, instead of having a photograph of your loved one, have their eye painted, and you would carry it with you. So sometimes it was just a sentimental thing you had between like you and your wife or husband, and carry it with you, but a lot of the times too it would represent mourning somebody so that you could forever gaze into their eyes. And the ones that were mourning would have, they would be encrusted with a gem, so you can see here, there's gemstones. And a lot of the times they would have pearls around the exterior as well. So in reference to that, I created this piece, which is in the show as well, but using lace wings instead. So lace wings are another type of pollinator, and so I also wanted to kind of utilize their wings and using the pearls in that way. And, oops. This is kind of related as well. I went on a road trip in a few years ago, and I was thinking again about that encircling as a way to memorialize and just to kind of pay attention to. So on this cross-country road trip, I wanted to create links in each state that would like abstractly represent a chain, kind of like linking together the ecosystems. So to do that, any insect or animal that I saw that was dead, like the roadkill, I guess, I would kind of like mark it with stones that were nearby. And I kind of wondered, like the bottom two were in Nebraska on this farmland. And I always wondered, like, what if a Nebraska farmer came across these? Like, what would they think some witchery was happening? Okay, so ambrotypes, I wanted to talk about, like, tintypes and daguerreotypes. They were during this time as well, so once photography came to be in, like, the mid-1800s. This one on the left is a tintype. And you can see a hidden mother behind this child, which is really, it's a little creepy. I mean, all of this will be, so, but so they would have, the mothers would hold the kids so they wouldn't, fall, and they could get their photograph taken because they had to sit still, so they would hold on to them, but they would be draped with a black cloth. And in 2017, so this one on the right was a piece I made, and I took a workshop to learn how they did this process, which was more intensive than I realized, and created a small series of pieces that preserved either dead animals or insects. So I found these, or was gifted, these two hummingbirds, and just created a photograph of them. So it was kind of preserved like these images. Whitby jet was also used a lot during the Victorian era. They wanted to use, when they were grieving, they didn't want to use things that were really shiny or kind of like colorful. They wanted things subdued and solemn, so to kind of represent their grief. So jet is a fossilized wood. It's like a really lightweight material, and they were able to carve different things out of. So like they did a lot of chain. They had pendants that they would kind of carve this detailed work into. And I wanted to learn how they were doing that. So this piece on the right, I created a chain, but then I have a deer bone. That's the white link. It was really intense to kind of like figure out how to carve the chain. I think I have a detail image here. So every other link is split in half and then put back together with like little pegs. And that's how they would have done it, at least I believe, and that's how I was taught, that they would do it in this way. And they probably had a special adhesive as well to kind of hold it into place. So I mentioned I studied at Rhode Island School of Design, and I also studied at Indiana University of Pennsylvania for my undergrad. But while I was at RISD, I wanted to research a little bit more into these rituals and objects that related to grief and memorializing others. So I was specifically looking at the attire now, and looking at mourning veils and lace and just different ways that they would adorn themselves to represent their mourning and paying respects. So they graciously let me look through their collections. So they showed me all these really beautiful pieces of lace that were preserved. And this was one of them that I was really inspired by. So the one on the right is the first piece of honeybee wing lace that I created. I wanted to create a material that represented the fragility of life and specifically the fragility of kind of our ecosystem and insects in general and how we're affecting them. So to create memorials, I wanted to start with figuring out if I could make it into a new material. I started out by just kind of like pressing them together haphazardly, and that just became kind of a mess of balloon wings, and it was kind of gross. So my professor at the time said, why don't you work like you normally do, which is more delicately placing things and intentionally kind of like creating a pattern. So the two kind of merged together. I think that's then when I started to look at these patterns to see maybe what I could base the designs on. And this piece is about 1 inch by 1 inch. It's really, really tiny piece. So, and you'll see in there how big the wings are. They're really super tiny. So to create this, I think I'll have more images later, but I basically just used tweezers. I dipped one end into an archival glue, which is kind of like Elmer's glue, and then just piece it together really slowly. Takes a really long time. And the more that I was researching about bees, everything kind of felt like it was coming together. So in their hives, bees will do what's called a festooning, or they call it a lace work as well, where they're kind of doing scaffolding across. And they're not exactly sure, at least when I researched, they weren't exactly sure why they do this, but they believe it's to build a comb, and like they literally are doing it for scaffolding, to hold together to create something new, which I thought was really beautiful. So ever since that 1 inch piece that I made, I wanted to expand the scale, and with the goal in mind of creating a veil one day out of the wings. I didn't know if it was possible, but that was kind of the goal, the end goal. So I started to do these studies where I was expanding the scale and just seeing how it would hold up, if it would hold up, because it's so delicate of a material. The material is kind of, it's almost paper-like, and it doesn't decompose like the rest of the body will, so it's similar in a way to the hair that they would use. And so that's kind of the connection I was making there. And in this one, I have a video of me moving it around. So, and you can also see where I'm pulling from these designs on the lace. So it moves like a lace almost. And I'll do this before I frame it, so I make sure that any part that is separating, I can just reinforce it back together. So that's how it kind of moves. It's not as, I thought it would be a lot stiffer, but it was moving like lace. And this is just the last study that I did, or actually this may have been number 2. Yeah, this was number 2. And I knew I wanted to do it in this circular form, but scale it up really large, so I did this one. And I was thinking about how to preserve this further, like how can I extend the life of this really, really delicate piece of new material. And so I created these frames, or I had somebody help me create these frames. And it kind of connected back, like reflecting on this, it connects back to the name of the show called Enshrined, which means to protect, preserve, or cherish something as sacred. And so, yeah, again, like protecting these materials and the stories of the bees and kind of keeping their story moving forward. This is a piece I did where I wanted to see if I could create a 3-dimensional form. And so I was looking, again, this is table work on the left with hair. I'll show you on the next slide what the table looks like for them to create these crazy weaving globes. And so to do that, I used kind of like jewelry metalsmithing, that's my background. So I used tools in jewelry metalsmithing. They're like these half-domed dapping blocks. And then I also used honeybee propolis, which is like this resinous material, and painted it on to kind of like harden it and give it more of a shell. And so this is what the table work looks like, or the tables of the table work. They would have these weights, and each of these would have hair attached, and then there would be these crazy intricate patterns that they would do. I've never done it, but it's, I have a book in there, if you're interested in learning more about it. It talks about like different patterns that they would do, and there's more examples of the hair work. They would kind of like also create tubes out of hair. It's really just an art in itself. This is another video. Okay, so the RISD Museum, they reached out to me. They knew I was a student previously, and I can't recall how they found my work besides knowing that I was a student there, but they wanted to commission me to make a piece based on their collection, and they had roof hives, and they still have honeybee hives. One of them had died over winter, so they wanted me to create a piece to memorialize it. So I used their wings and looked at their collection. So the image on the right is one of their pieces, and I just love the lace work. So I wanted to replicate that in the honeybee wings. Yeah.
How long does it take?
Oh, I don't have the hours of this, but I have the hours of the veil that it's for the,
You'll get there.
Yeah. I didn't write down I think I eventually wrote down my hours for this, but I can't recall how long this one took me. So I wanted to take a photograph. It's important for me to at least wear this once, because it's not an everyday, obviously, nobody's going to wear this every day. And it's so delicate. So I wanted to at least capture it again in a photograph to preserve it, wearing it on the body. And this piece is now in their collection. They have it on view currently, actually, in a show called Art and Design from 1900 to now. And they extended it's going to be open until December 2030. So if you're ever in Providence, Rhode Island, that will be up for quite a while. And they have it displayed flat in a display case. Okay, so the veil. I ended up, after 9 years of research, I finally made the veil. And this is 21,600 honeybee wings, which is about 10,000 bees. And surprisingly, when I looked this up, it's only half of a beehive. So that's only half of a colony of bees. And this piece is pretty big. It's 4 feet wide as a circle. So that can kind of maybe give you an idea of just how many bees are in a colony. And this took me over 250 hours. I think probably closer to 350, but I was logging my hours to make sure I knew how long this would take. And so when I did this piece, I looked back again to that earlier research that I did, and the different patterns that I could create. For this, because I wanted it to be pretty symmetrical, I used Rhino, a software to help me create the patterns that I could use as a guide versus hand drawing or just basing it on me trying to be specific with the, perfect with the wings, which I knew would be really hard. So I had a design that I was working off of. And again, I wanted to make sure that I took a photo of me wearing it. My gallery at the time said, "Are you sure you want to put that on? It's probably going to break. And do you really want to do that when there's maybe going to be a museum interested?" But I knew it for the piece to come across as what it is, as a mourning veil, that it needed to be worn. And I also was designing it to for the body to see like where it would lay on the body, so like how these come across under the chin and the circles on the head.
Yeah.
In the
Excuse me.
Oh yeah.
With the veil, because I don't understand all this. That's something that they would wear back then, or is that just?
Yeah, they would. Yes. So sorry, I didn't mention. They would wear mourning veils when they're. It was typically women that would wear them when their husbands died in the war, and they would wear mourning attire. I think for a year.
Yeah, they had a speaker here who talked about the dresses. They would wear black and then eventually go to gray with black trim.
Yeah, black, gray, and then purple to like out of their mourning stages.
But they would wear that during the prime time of mourning?
I think during the funeral, I don't know how long they would wear the veils for, but I know it was at least during like the funeral, which is still a tradition used today. Yeah, thank you for asking. So in the creation of this, I asked my family to help me create it. So I held a quilting bee, if you've heard of it. Pun intended. And so you can see the pattern underneath that we were going off of. Oh, I wanted to be playing this video in the middle while I'm drawing. This is me. In the middle is me finishing the veil. And on the left and right, you can see my family helping me. So each of them had a different thing to do, whether it was kind of like separating out the bee wings or helping me to actually place them in position. My mom's here on the right, and they realized how tedious it was and said, let's maybe never do this again. No, they were happy to help, and I was really grateful that they had their hand in the piece.
And that is the veil that you were wearing just previously in the photos? Wow.
And after that, I also was thinking, I never want to make anything like this again. But I ended up having an idea after that, and I wanted to create a bow. So it was one of those inspirational things, like I need to do this. It's just like, it needs to come out. So I made a bow of the wings, and I don't have a picture, but Victorians would also, they would tie a piece and have a bow kind of like under their chin as part of either their hat or like headpiece, or they would just have a bow kind of that's black. And so I wanted to create that again in honeybee wings, and that piece is in the show you'll see in there. And with this one I used the smaller bee wings, so the bees have 4 wings technically. 2 larger and then 2 hind wings. So this one's using the tinier wings, which was even more meticulous. I don't know why I did that to myself, but I was really satisfied with the piece. Okay, now I want to show some contemporary mourning jewelry as well as next to some historic pieces. So on the left is a hair mourning locket. So each of these is a strand of hair, and they would wear this again in mourning of their lost loved one. And on the right is an artist, Melanie Bylinker, who also uses hair. So all of those lines are just little tiny strands of hair. So also a very tedious process. But she's capturing fleeting moments in life, of ordinary moments in everyday life. And a quote from her is, quote, "I see hair as proof of existence, a souvenir," end quote.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the size of the piece on the right?
It's about like 2 inches.
Oh, wow.
So it's, yeah, these look a lot larger in the images, but it's pretty a smaller scale. And this one's a brooch. The one on the left is a locket, so that would be like a pendant. This is Kelly Jean Conroy. She's not really making mourning pieces, but it's also talking about decomposition and afterlife and rebirth. So she's using bones as well, and I use that in my work. You'll see some pieces in there. She's also cutting out metal and creating these kind of butterflies, again talking about rebirth from death. And on the right is that is Mother of Pearl, and that has been engraved. So she does laser etching into materials, kind of like bringing in the traditional techniques with these newer age techniques. And those are ants.
Oh, ants, okay.
On the left is a vulcanite hand pin. So hands were another symbol. There's whole symbology behind the Victorians, just everything that they do. So hands typically meant empathy, but also represented love and affection. So a lot of the times you would exchange these hand pins with a friend, and these were mass produced. The vulcanite ones, which vulcanite I believe is synthetic rubber. I'm looking at my mom, she knows. I think that's right. Yeah, a synthetic rubber. And on the right is an artist, Renee Zettel-Sterling, who created a piece mourning her brother and talking about empathy by using the hand symbol again. I don't have all the materials down from this, but I know she's incorporating like wood, resin, fibers, and metals.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I was just curious. Say during the Civil War, just as a period, or War of 1812, if somebody lost more than one person, would they just wear one type of mourning thing, or would they wear two? Would they wear a hand?
That's another good question. I think it was typically when they lost their partner in the war that they would wear kind of like all of the attire. But if they had, there would be pins made for different people. So if they were close to them, there may be a pin that says in memory of, and then their name.
Because I thought like maybe that husband and son both got killed,
Right,
serving.
they would maybe wear both. I don't know if they would wear them at the same time, or I don't exactly know in everyday life how they would wear those pins, but yeah, if they had a family member that passed, they would maybe have a pin that said in memory of, and then their initials or their name. This is MJ Tyson. I don't have a historic piece to compare, but she goes to estate sales and collects all of the metal objects from there and then melts them down into creating new pieces. So, each, like this is a vessel on the left, and the title of the piece would be the address of that home. So it would be kind of these lost stories, again, talking about the stories, but they would be created into a new piece, and kind of a memorial for that person or that home. And the ones on the right, she would sometimes create a new jewelry piece from as well. And Katie McGuire is an artist who uses a lot of bird feathers. This sculpture's really large. I don't have the measurements, but I think it's as tall as me. She does really big scale pieces using bird feathers. And this is a quote from her. "My work is inspired by water forming incredible patterns that are there 1 second and gone the next. Everything is fleeting on water. It is beautiful, but then there's danger and treachery underneath the surface," which I thought was beautiful. So thinking again about fleeting moments and kind of preserving them. Jennifer Trask also uses animal bone, and again is thinking about exploring remembrance and the reality of impermanence. So creating something like a rose or flower that dies so quickly, but preserving that with these materials that will outlast. And the bottom, I think, is silver. Then I wanted to show some of my student work because they're the voices of the future. And some of them are also exploring these ideas. So Karina Falter, we do an enameling project where I have them look at historical references to create something new. And she was looking at lover's eyes and created this pair of enamel pieces, but kind of having the eyes hidden within the birch tree bark. Yeah. This student's work is in process, and I just had a critique with him. So this is Jeff Ellis. His father recently passed, so he's been spending a lot of time going through all of his old items, and he has like thousands of baseball cards. And so the one on the right, he's trying to find a way to create new pieces using the baseball cards. He laminated them, and then he put it on a lathe, and he's trying to make a yo-yo out of it. So he's figuring that out, and I asked him if I could use these images, and he was okay with it. And then this on the left, his dad was obviously a big baseball fan. He coached baseball. So he kind of is tying together his memory with Jeff's memory of just being a child. So he's creating these dice that, die that hang from the car mirrors, but creating them using leather and the red string to kind of emulate a baseball. Chloe Duran we actually wanted to show some of her work today. She was a student of mine I think she was in school 2020, like around that time. A really hard time to be in school, or just in general. But
we were all mourning.
Yes, a period of mourning for everybody. She looks to the hair mourning jewelry as well, and so this on the left is a hair mourning locket where they're braiding together the hair, and then the black would be enamel, and the rest is likely gold. It could also be brass. She, however, is using synthetic hair, so she's kind of bringing it into this age where like they wouldn't have that hair color back then, and yes, bringing it into today's world and relating it back to herself. She's also 3D printing, so this kind of ghostly figure, she 3D printed that, and then is also using traditional metalsmithing techniques to create something, a refreshed idea of, she says, a fresh interpretation of the ancient medium of jewelry.
Excuse me, one quick question.
Yeah.
Back then, in whatever period out, 1800s, did everybody understand when somebody, I guess mostly women, had the jewelry on that they were in mourning? Did they because if people have different pieces, did they understand? People generally understand that's a mourning piece? Do you know?
Oh yeah, that was just common language back then. Everybody would be. The jewelry was. It became kind of like an everyday thing for people to be expressing their mourning, and so it was. Yeah, that was a way to express.
But everybody else would know that when they saw them. Oh,
yeah,
Jane's in mourning. Everybody, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it eventually became mass-produced, so everybody knew what that meant.
Okay.
I think probably before that, like anything, it was only available to the rich that could afford it. But then it eventually became more mass-produced, so everybody kind of understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So she also made these pieces based on memento mori. Has anybody heard of memento mori before? A few of you. That means remember that you are to die, or more simply, remember to die, which is kind of, it's the same as YOLO, you only live once. So she made that tie, she created these, she 3D printed these rings, cast them, and then she enameled them. So it would be, the enameling part is really similar to what they would do with these memento mori rings. And this wasn't really Victorian mourning, this was prior to that. And it was, again, just kind of to remind yourself to live in the moment and just be, you know.
What again do they stand for? YOLO? What does that stand
I didn't just say that, okay. YOLO is you only live once. And FML is F my life. I won't say the word because my parents are here. But she has kind of like, she's bringing in this humor to the work. These like contemporary language reflecting back to the past. And then I just wanted to end with some upcoming things that I have. So I have a show coming up in Richmond, Virginia, from, the dates are up there. It's called A Dream Outside My Body. It's at the Visual Arts Center. and Andy Lowry, who also teaches at Towson, curated the show. And it's bringing together all these jewelers, all the jewelers from Baltimore Jewelry Center, and showcasing our work. So that gave all of us an opportunity to make bigger work because it's a really big space. So instead of just making jewelry, a lot of us are making more like sculptural pieces as well. So if you're interested, that's happening. And we already announced this, but this piece is going to be at the Smithsonian Renwick Gallery. It's in their collection right now. They're making a frame for it currently, and I'm working with them on that. And it'll be up next September, I believe, next fall.
Is that the Renwick Gallery right there within the?
Yes, yeah, in DC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, right, it's near the main Smithsonian and all that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered.
Yeah. Yep. So that'll be on
Actually,
view
I know that.
next
You just
year.
couldn't remember.
Interesting.
And this is if you're interested in learning more, this is where I've gathered a lot of my information about Victorian mourning. Again, I have a couple books in there if you're interested in reading more, and I'm happy to answer any other questions about that. I think that's it. So thank you. I think we have some time for questions. Yes.
When they were doing the hair jewelry, did they use, I mean, you take a strand of hair and try to do something with it, it's too flimsy, it's too soft.
Right.
What did they use to stiffen it to be able to do something with it?
So I have to repeat the question, I sort of realized. Sorry, I wasn't repeating the questions earlier. So the question was, how did they stiffen the hair so that it was more wearable? For those pieces where the hair is kind of braided, I don't believe they use anything besides multiple strands and the braiding to hold it together. But in pieces like, I don't have the palette work in here, but pieces like this, they use some type of gum, I don't know if it's gum arabic or there's some type of like resinous material that they're using to hold it into place and to kind of like paste it together. Yes.
How do you inspire your students to create these different things with these unique mediums? I mean, here you've been working on this for over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be pretty hard to convey to others who are possibly just learning in art and then trying to create too. So how do you inspire them or teach them?
Okay, thank you. The question is, how do I inspire my students to create new pieces? So that's been something that I've tried different approaches with. So like for one, the enameling project, I have them look at either museum collections or look into different historical eras, things that they're interested in, and dive deeper. And that has always produced really interesting work. Another project I have them do is going outside and looking at things outside to find inspiration from taking photos, noticing what you notice, so like noting the texture, the form, how can that then be translated into something new. And I also give slideshows like this. I show things that already exist and what they could maybe look deeper into. It's a hard balance to have them, to not show them too much, but have them feel like they're able to do more research into things that they're really interested in. I hope that answers. Yes.
So the lace was the lace made out of hair, or the lace was made out of like threads?
So the question is, was the lace made out of hair? The lace was made out of threads. There were a couple pieces I didn't include where they would stitch with hair. Actually, there's a napkin they had where they had a bird stitched and it was stitched with hair. But a lot of the mourning veils, those were just fabric that they were using. So the hair came into the jewelry more so, and the wreaths that I showed. Yeah. Yes.
What is it you're wearing on your ring finger?
So this is by an artist, Marta Matson. It's a beetle, and she did this process called copper electroforming, and where it coats organic materials or plastics or anything in a layer of copper, and then she set all these stones inside of it, so it's the beetles in there. It's one of my favorites. We did a trade. I actually traded her one of the pieces that I don't have in the slideshow, but it's in there. It's similar to a piece I have in there, so we did a trade. Any other questions? My mom was going to make she was going to give a question, but a joking question. Okay, I think that's it then. There's still more of an announcement.
So I'm Fran Taylor, president of the Todd's Inheritance Historic Site. And on behalf of all of our volunteers, I want to thank you, Lucy. It was a great presentation. Very new to me, and so I really enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody who came out today for the presentation also, and invite you to come back. I guess one of the next biggest thanks we have to have is for Maryland Humanities, who for the last couple of years have provided a grant to us so that we can host these kind of presentations. So on behalf of all the volunteers, check out our Facebook page and our website, toddsinheritance.org. Again, we are a nonprofit. We just operate on donations and grants. So anybody who's inclined to help us present more things like this and help us with our mission, please go online. We appreciate every bit. So again, thank you all for coming. It's what makes it all worthwhile. Please come back.